Hello there. I want to talk about two things today. Before you can start investing, before you even think of putting down a deposit on your house, before you start building your wealth, you need to do two things. Number one, you need to have an emergency fund. And number two, you need to get out of debt if you are in debt. And I'm following the principles of Dave Ramsey. You can follow him on YouTube. I'll put all of these links down below for you. And he basically says this baby steps, he calls them. Build up the emergency fund, get out of debt, put down the deposit on your house, pay off the mortgage and invest. And when you've finished paying off your house, you just carry on investing and you grow your wealth. And I'm simplifying it, but that's essentially what he says. And let's start with the emergency fund. How are you going to do that? Most people say, well, I haven't got any money to save. I'm struggling as it is. I think the key thing for me is you need to honestly pay yourself first. You need to have some sort of mechanism. And these days with the internet, it's generally with your bank, it's so easy to do. You set up a scheduled payment or a scheduled transfer. As soon as you get paid, the money goes through into the savings account. It doesn't go to anybody else. It's always there if you need it. But you just make it an automatic process. And by the way, the emergency fund is for emergencies. Maintenance on your car is not an emergency. Brake pads is not an emergency. It's something you have to do every 2-3 years. Tires is not an emergency. Your geyser exploding and you have to buy a new geyser for your house. That's an emergency. Writing off your car and you need $2,000 for the excess for the insurance company, that's an emergency. So be wary of eating into this emergency fund. Put it there, leave it there, and it is for emergencies. I'm with FNB, but I'm sure your bank has a similar thing. FNB has this nice thing called a savings pocket or a savings account. Everybody who has an account with FNB automatically has a savings account. I call mine medical savings. In other words, it's just for medicines and any emergencies that may crop up. But you just make it a scheduled transfer. So every month, first of the month, my next one is the 1st of January, $300 will go through to my savings account, not to anybody else, to my savings account. And FNB has some other nice things. They've got rewards and incentives to encourage you to save. The one is called Bank Your Change, and you can do a little bit of internet research. But basically, once you have set that up, every time you swipe your card to make a purchase, automatically they put $2, $5, $10, whatever you decide, into your savings account. It's a lovely way of kind of being forced to save without even you knowing it. $5 every time you swipe, you don't even notice that. In addition to that, any change, any cents you have, if it's 10 cents, they'll round it up to $1. If it's $2.10, they'll round it up to $3, etc. So all of those things really do mount up. Now the other thing is FNB rewards. And they reward you for doing certain things. In other words, if you use your credit card to buy petrol, seemingly they love that, so I use my credit card to buy petrol, then immediately I transfer the money from my check account back to my credit card, so the credit card stays on zero, but then you get the rewards. This is kind of what it would look like for me. FNB rewards come through, $88. It's not much, but it's a little bit. And BYC is Bank Your Change, so $10, $31, $15, that's fine. And there's my $300 that I transfer myself every month into the saving. You can see how this starts to mount up. That's about that's about nearly $500 going into the savings account every month. That's $6,000 a year. That's $12,000 every 2 years. And that can really be a solid emergency fund for you, and it's getting a little bit of interest, not much, but the main thing is you can access it any time of the day or night. It's instant access, so that's a nice security blanket for you to have. The other thing is that getting out of debt. I've been lucky with two things. Number one, I've only got into debt over one thing at a time in my life. So we needed a fridge. We bought a fridge on debt. Once the fridge was paid off, we bought a washing machine. Once the washing machine was paid off, we bought a microwave, etc., etc., etc. So if you can, try to avoid getting into debt. But obviously, if you're starting a new home, you need some of these things. So some people, it's something that you have to do. But if you are in a lot of debt, what Dave Ramsey says is this is an emotional problem, not a logical problem. So we can go through all the numbers, but it needs to be an emotional thing that you yourself want to get out of debt. And what he says is just start with the smallest debt and pay it off, because emotionally that will have a reinforcement effect. You will feel better. It will encourage you to do more. And then you just carry on. And again, this is a Google spreadsheet. You can just click on it and you can have a look at it yourself in more detail. But let's say you have a cash loan, $2,000, you owe Edgar's $2,399, you've got another cash loan of $3,000, you owe Lewis $4,000. Those are your debts. And let's say on the far left here, you've got $1,000 a month in your budget that you've managed to make available to pay off these debts. Well, you start with Edgar's will get $150 a month. The cash loan gets $150 a month, and Lewis will get $250 a month. That's what they want. That's their minimum payment. You pay them that. But you've got $450 left over from your 1,000. So you pump that into the cash loan, and by March next year, the cash loan is paid. Now do you see what happens? Look in the next column. Edgar's now, instead of paying $150, you're now suddenly paying them $850. You're adding to that. So now, and then $600. So that Edgar's is paid off. And now we transfer that to the next one. The cash loan, $750, that's paid off. Lewis, one final payment of $1,000. And by July, I think it is next year, it's paid off. And by the way, of course, then that $1,000 you were putting towards debt, if you still want to build up your emergency fund, you carry on. And by this time next year, December 2023, you've got $5,000 in your emergency fund, and all of the debts are paid off. Obviously, in your case, it's going to be different. You may have more debts, you may have less debts, you may have more money available to pay off the debts, you may have less. But this is a flexible spreadsheet. You can change these figures yourself and get an idea of how to do it. But this is the principle behind the debt snowball. So good luck with all of that.